Did you know that 40% of Americans that make at least $100,000 are still living paycheck to paycheck? Yeah, I know, that surprised me too. I thought that all these rich people had everything figured out. But it goes to show that overconsumption impacts people from all socioeconomic backgrounds. As you make more money, the trap that a lot of people fall into is that they just spend more money to try and keep up with their friends or to try and keep up with appearances. In this video, I want to talk about how you can recognize the impacts of overconsumption on preventing you from achieving financial freedom and what you can do about it so that you can achieve your goals. If you're new here, hi. I'm Pietro Conti, and I am an ex-investment banker and have worked in the financial services industry for the past 10 years. On this channel, I try to share some personal finance tips that I've picked up along the road for the past 10 years so that hopefully you can not make some of the mistakes that I've made and level up your personal finance and self-development goals. So if that's something that you're interested in, then you should consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. All right, let's get into it. In a nutshell, overconsumption is buying stuff that you don't need to impress people that you don't really like. It's a trap that a lot of people fall into where they think that they will find happiness by buying things or spending money on experiences, but more often than not, it comes from a place of insecurity. And what you see happening a lot with overconsumption is people will spend money on things that only provide short-term value and not long-term benefits. It has a significant impact on the environment. Fast fashion is one example that always gets hit, but just the fact that you're buying so much stuff, I think that it clutters your mind. And by spending money on all these things and looking for external validation out of these things, I think that you're quickly gonna run into the trap that buying things is not going to make you happy. And at the end of the day, what you need to think about doing is investing in meaningful purchases and meaningful relationships in your life so that you can make sure that you have enough money so that you can actually build wealth instead of spending it all on things that you really don't need. Time and money are both finite resources that you can't make more of. And so if you are over consuming, what that means is that you are spending time and money on objectives that are not bringing you closer to your highest ROI financial goals. Now, a lot of people fall for overconsumption. One of the big ticket items that you see it in is lifestyle inflation. And so what lifestyle inflation is the idea that as you make more money, then you can spend more money. Rather than keeping it proportional and saving more money, a lot of people just get more money and turn around and spend it. I personally have fallen for that trap, and I think that a lot of people have, which for me, it was going out and buying clothes and running to bars and going on trips so that I could live in the moment. And my justification was, I'm only in my 20s once. I better live it up the best that I can. So this time is fleeting. I need to go and I need to have fun and enjoy it now. What I didn't learn until I was a little bit older is that those bars, those restaurants, they're not going anywhere. And so when I was in my later 20s, I ran a bit of a social experiment on myself, which was what would happen if I cut out alcohol or going out for a little bit of time in my life. And what I noticed right away, number one, was I wasn't spending money going out. So that's immediate money right back for me to spend on whatever it is that I want to. But more importantly, since I had more time and I felt better because I wasn't trying to go out and impress anybody or run around and have anxiety by trying to outdo my friends for whatever trips were going on. What I realized was that I had more time so that I can focus on improving in my career. And within 6 short months of doing that, I was up for a promotion, which ended up getting me a $30,000 raise, which was just a way better way that I should have spent my time instead of running around. Now, from there, I learned do not turn around and take that extra money and just spend it right away. I reinvested into myself. So by making more money, I would save more money and put it into the stock market. This, with more time, I was learning how to invest my money, what I can do with it, and keep focusing and doing a better job at my job. And the next year, I was up for another promotion, which ended up being another raise for me. So it's crazy. As I was going out and trying to impress people and show that I was making some money, what ended up happening was I wasn't getting promoted. But as soon as I reframed my money and time as a resource that I could invest in myself, well, then all of a sudden I started to see dividends of that by not buying any money and just reinvesting my time, which was an opportunity cost, into something that would actually make me more money. There's this concept in psychology. It's called the Hedonic Treadmill, which basically means that when you spend money or go to splurge on something for yourself, you get a dopamine hit that feels good. So you go on a nice trip and it feels great for that weekend, but then you come back and all of a sudden that great feeling that you had from the trip that you went on goes down, and a month later you feel like you should get that excitement again because you deserve it. So you go on a little bit bigger of a trip, and the treadmill just keeps going because there's all these small dopamine hits that you'll get by doing something fun or exciting or something that you know that you shouldn't be doing. And in order to keep that good feeling going, you gotta keep going with it. It's one of these things that society has really just tried to push on us as part of a consumer culture. You see it on social media all the time. People living these extravagant, great lives that you think, wow, if I could do that, then I would just be so happy. But the thrill always wears off. And in order to get off of the hedonic treadmill, you first really need to recognize that you're even on it. By being aware and just looking and just not judging, not making any changes, just observe what it is that you do in order to chase happiness in your life. And if you see yourself needing to buy things or use retail therapy or need to really just spend money in order to be happy, then you should recognize that you're on the hedonic treadmill. Once you recognize that you're on it, you can start making some adjustments into your life to change it. And so if you focus on prioritizing meaningful relationships with people instead of one-time trips, then you can save money by not going on those trips and build better relationships by just having friends over to have a nice dinner. The hedonic treadmill's evil cousin is FOMO culture. This is really what social media pushes out. If you look at your friends' Instagram accounts, it's almost like it's a Coca-Cola ad of people doing all the coolest stuff and the highlights of their life and going to Europe and drinking Aperol spritzes and going to XYZ concerts or events. People only show what the highlights of their life, and it feels like a competition. If you're on social media and you're following 500 or 1,000 people, and all 500 or 1,000 people are showing you only the highlights of their life, if you're like me, you start to think, well, why don't I have all of those highlights? How come my life is just so boring? And what this ends up pushing a lot of people to do is to try and get those posts on their page where they can show everybody that they're keeping up with the Joneses and doing equally fun things. And so they'll go out and spend money on trips that they can't really afford. Now, I have friends that presumably make about as much money as me or even less because we have similar backgrounds, but every time I open up Instagram, they're in Miami or Las Vegas or Brazil or somewhere crazy fun looking. And honestly, I'm jealous. It looks like they're having a great time, but I've fallen into the trap where I've sat down and thought, well, I have a similar background to them. How come I'm not going on all of these cool trips? Shouldn't I be going on these trips too? But the older I get, the more that I realize you really don't know what someone's financial situation is. And so just because they're going on these trips doesn't mean that they can really afford it. So when they go on these trips, I think you can get a sense for what someone's income is, but you can't see what their wealth is. So I've come to the conclusion, no matter how much money they make, there's just a lot of people out there that don't save any money. And so you really can't compare yourself to others. When it comes to wealth building, you need to compare yourself to yourself the year before and make the best decisions for you. And so one way to get off of this is to try and just spend less time on social media. I have an app called Freedom, which blocks social media apps on my phone for hours at a time so that I don't have to see it. And then just focus on trying to spend more quality time with people that you actually care about. So everyone has so many acquaintances in their life. If you could find just the couple that you really care about and try to spend more time with them, the best times that you're really gonna have with your friends or your family is when you're just hanging out together, watching a movie, doing something that you both enjoy. So try to focus on prioritizing those moments with close ones instead of thinking that you always need to go go on trips. Now, it's something that you can do as a treat. I think that vacations are very important. You need time to explore the world and have fun, but you need to do it responsibly and probably significantly less than all these people on Instagram who are just living crazy lives. One of the things that's helped me is mindful spending. And what that means is just paying attention to what you spend your money on. So what I like to follow is the 50-30-20 rule, which means that 50% of your take-home pay goes towards your needs, 30% goes towards what you want, and 20% goes towards your savings. You pay yourself first, automatically 20% of your take-home pay, so you know that you're saving, and with the rest you operate within that framework. By paying yourself first, you're guaranteeing that you're taking care of yourself financially. Then you can just make tweaks to your spending schedule that fits within your wants and your needs. What I do is at the end of every month, I go through my statement and I try to bucket and put in where my expenses are and how they fit, and whether I'm operating within the 50-30-20 framework. And the great thing about this is there's a lot of flexibility. You don't need to put so much pressure on yourself to develop a strict budget, but you can make changes to see what it is that works for you. And so whenever there's a big expense that I'm thinking about getting, maybe it's I want to buy a laptop, or I want to go on some trip somewhere, maybe I want to go on vacation to Las Vegas with some friends. What I do is I follow the 30-day rule, or if it's a trip where people want to go quickly, maybe it's a 2-week rule, but take some time. If an idea comes up to spend a significant amount of money, think a couple $100s or more, just take some time and note in your minds that you want to do it and revisit it 2 weeks or a month later. If you still want to do it 2 weeks or a month later and it fits within your 50-30-20 framework, then you should go ahead and get it or go on that trip. But oftentimes what I find is that after 2 weeks or a month, usually I don't even want to go on that trip anymore or get that new gadget. Usually completely forget about it and don't come back to it for months later. And so by following that rule, I think that you put yourself into a more intentional mental space where you're spending money on things that you actually think will add value to your life, instead of just spontaneously spending money without any guardrails, which I think a lot of people fall into that trap. And so if there's anything that you really need to take away from this, it's that building wealth requires intentional, conscious decisions and choices. So what do I mean by that? Overconsumption typically takes resources, your time and money, and takes it away from wealth building activities. So if you can focus on being mindful about what you want to spend your money on, then you can free up your resources so that you can invest more, save more, and put your money to work for you. I think that it's important that you align your financial habits with what your personal values are, and really think about it. What is it that you value? Do you value going on multiple trips per year, or do you value building relationships with people who are really your friends instead of your acquaintances? Being intentional is a journey, and you're not going to figure it out all at once. What I recommend doing is focusing on one area of improvement per month. If during your monthly budgeting process you see that you spend a lot of money going out to eat with friends, then maybe for that next month you should focus on being intentional about trying to eat 90% or more of your meals at home. So what I recommend doing is, while you're going through your budget, list out all of the times that you went out to eat and just be mindful. Know what that number is that you spent out to eat, and then for the next month try to make some adjustments, try to make your groceries at home, and then see how much your total food bill costs you and see if there's a difference. By actually seeing those dollars, then I think that you'll realize that you are making progress, and that'll make it more of a permanent change. If you find yourself going out to bars all the time, which could easily be $100 or $200 a weekend, adds up to be $600 to $800 a month pretty quick. If you see that you're spending all that time and money by doing that on your weekends, then just focus 1 month, either dry with no alcohol or no bars, and just have some alcohol with friends at home and play board games. And same thing, just line up how much money you spent in a month going to bars, and then how much you spent when you made the change for a month. Again, I just think that putting dollars and pen to paper is going to make it way more impactful for you than if you're to just freeball it. Just like anything else, being conscious of your spending habits is a skill that you can learn and hone and refine so that you'll get better at it over time and start to really be intentional about every dollar that you spend.